Good morning, everybody, and welcome to a special edition of Tarleton Thursday here on KTRL. John Kirby, the general manager here at KTRL 90.5, and your host for this edition of Tarleton Thursday. Very happy to have as our guest today Dr. Thomas Hatfield, Tom Hatfield, who is a military historian. He's the Dean Emeritus of Continuing Education at the University of Texas at Austin. Most importantly, he's on the Tarleton campus all week talking about General James Earl Rudder, who was a Tarleton grad, a decorated war veteran in World War II, and a military historian, I think, in his own right. So, Tom Hatfield, welcome to KTRL and 90.5. And let me ask you right off the bat, why did General Rudder strike a chord with you? I know he's a war hero, but why have you spent so much time researching his work?
Well, I have a passionate interest in the war, and in Normandy, especially the Normandy landings of June 6, 1944, the subsequent battle across Normandy that lasted for another couple of months. And Rudder was a key figure in that. And he is also a native of the Texas Hill Country, as I am. And so while there is a quarter of a century difference in our periods, that is, when we were born, I identified strongly with him. I served in the Army myself, 2 years on active duty and 9 years in the active reserve. And I served under him. So I identified strongly with him. And so I wanted to write the book, write his biography, really to explain, to know more about him and to explain him to the public.
Where did the rubber hit the road for you deciding this is the man? There's so many great men who took part in that invasion. Why General Rudder?
Well, Rudder rose to prominence in the mid-1950s, and I didn't discover this until several years later. But he was featured on the front cover of a magazine. It was the era of magazines, that's before television.
Right.
On the front cover of a magazine called Collier's, 7 million copies on the 10th anniversary of the Normandy landings. That would have been in 1954. 7 million copies, and he's on the front cover, look in Normandy with his 14-year-old son, looking down the cliffs of a place called Pointe du Hoc, which he had scaled with some 240 other Rangers at the very beginning of D-Day in June 6, 1944. So basically, that was all that most people knew about his military record, but there was so much more to be known about him and his life. And so that was the challenge to me when I was offered a contract to write his biography.
What is it about him that you found so fascinating? Aside from obviously he was a military hero and landing that day in Pointe du Hoc was quite a feat. But what else about him did you find so fascinating?
Well, he is a change agent, and he's a very moral person, and he achieved high levels of authority. That is, that he was the president of Texas A&M University, chancellor of the A&M of the Texas A&M University system. And you have people who have character and moral values who come into leadership positions. They can make great changes, as he did. And that is why that he fascinated me most of all.
One of the things in reading your biography and all the information that people sent me was that you want to make, and correct me if I'm wrong here, you want to make military history, you want more people to understand American military history. How are you going about that?
Well, it isn't only military history. It is to try to teach history, to cause our people, Americans, to understand their history. Where we came from, how our institutions were formed, how decisions have been made in our past, and those can kind of give us a path for what we want to do, want our country to go into the future. There's an abysmal ignorance in this country among our citizens about much of our history. Not so long ago, I gave a lecture at a sort of select Midwestern college, and to my surprise afterwards, this young student came up to me, probably a sophomore, and said, until I heard you speak today, I never had realized that the 13 colonies were all on the Atlantic coast. See, that's an extraordinary profession of ignorance in both history and geography.
Absolutely. We're talking with Dr. Tom Hatfield of the University of Texas, who's on campus to discuss his biography of James Earl Rudder, a general in World War II, a Tarleton grad, and we're about to open a Rudder Way here on campus and have a General Rudder statue. John Kirby talking to Dr. Thomas Hatfield, military historian. You must be thrilled that Tarleton is naming a walkway after him, building a statue. I mean, you must think this is a well-deserved honor.
Well, I certainly do think it's a well-deserved honor, and I hope I can be forgiven for saying that I doubt that Rudder would continue to receive some of the recognitions that he has if it were not for the biography that I wrote of him. If I had not written the story of his life, I don't think people would have known what we now know about him, and certainly I didn't before I began researching and writing the book.
One of the things I preach around here is that the three most important words in radio and television are promote, promote, promote. So we forgive you for promoting your book. In fact, we admire it. So well done. Well done. Wonderful. One last question. What's next for you? What, do you have another book planned? Do you have another project that you'd like to tell us about very briefly? No, nothing.
No, I don't know. Not.
I didn't mean to stump you.
Well, I have numerous projects, and have another book that's recently been published.
Well, promote it. Tell us about it.
Well, the title of the book is called "On the Way," and it is the memoir of a man by the name of Frank Denius, who is a lawyer in Austin. He is a veteran of the Second World War. About a third of the book has to do with the war, but he also has been a leading philanthropist for Texas A&M and for the University of Texas at Austin, and just an all-around worthy citizen. His name is Denius, Denius. The title of the book is On the Way.
I knew if we pressed you, you'd have a great next project or completed project. His name is Dr. Thomas Hatfield. We're pleased to have him for another edition of Tarleton Thursday. Thank you, Tom, for dropping by today. I'm John Kirby, General Manager here at KTRL, and thank you for joining us on Tarleton Thursday.